Today's YouTube video deals with a welding repair. Here I've got my Scott's Classic 20-inch lawnmower, and I've indicated before in prior videos that the handle is not very strong, and indeed it isn't. It essentially consists of a whole bunch of these little parts here, but the problem I've had with it is where it joins onto the bottom loop here on this mower. It's a very stressful area. And let me bring it up to the camera here. I've already done a repair on this one right here where it cracks right where that hole is. Well, unfortunately on the other side the same thing has occurred. Of course it hasn't broken yet, but as you can see it's kind of flexible, and that's not good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a grinder, grind this down, then we're going to lay some weld in here and then grind it and make it pretty again, because this one, same deal, just weld, grind, and some paint, and it almost looks like new. The first thing to do to make this a lot easier to work on is to actually take the handle apart. This one is in 3 sections, 2 long pieces in the crossbar here. And there's a lot of slop in these anyway, but that's a good thing, because as you're pushing the mower along, it's going to be bouncing around on the ground. You don't want all that coming back to your hand, so a little bit of slop is fine, but not at the expense of the handle. So if this repair doesn't end up breaking, I'm going to go ahead and weld the whole thing together and make it one complete piece. But for now I'm going to take this over to the bench grinder. We're going to take the wire wheel. We don't want to break this, but we want to get the paint off it so we can get some weld to stick to it. And now, using my crude lighting, I'm going to go ahead and fire my bench grinder here. I've got safety glasses on, hearing protection because it's kind of loud. And I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to remove the material, just the paint, on each side of this hole here, hopefully without breaking it. If I can keep this piece on, it's going to make welding it a lot easier. To get in here, so I'm going to go ahead and take the angle grinder. We're just going to tap this real quick and bring that right down. Now I'm going to use a bench grinder, just kind of get these inside welds that our little wire wheel couldn't get. Now we've got all our crack well exposed, we got to go and set up our welder. Okay, let me show you my setup here. We've got our 220 power cord into our welder. It's a 100 amp welder, 220 volt, next to our little rod holder right there. We have our workpiece here on the bench. We have our ground open to an open ground on the spot there. Of course I dropped it after taking it off the bench, so it did break off. So I'm using this little clamp here to hold it together, and I'm going to put a little tack right there. Then I'll take this clamp off and put a tack right around there, flip the whole unit over, and then we'll weld up the crack that you see right there. And I'm going to go ahead and tripod the camera. I won't hurt my lens by showing you the arcing, but at least you'll be able to hear some of it. That's that for the tacking. I'm going to hit that slug off. We're going to flip it over and do our real weld. Looks like my welder's a little hot, but as you stick weld, it puts the slag material over. Wow, that's a horrible weld. I'm not a good welder, by the way, but I can get things done. Horrible little brush here. Now let's flip this thing over and do some more welding. Okay, this is what we've got to weld. You can see the crack right there. You can see the other crack there. And we're going to do our best to make those metals one again. Okay, and you can see my horrible weld. It looks bad right now, but the key point is we got those cracks filled in. I'm going to flip it back over, do the back side, then we're going to take it back inside, hit it with the grinder, make it look pretty. So I have my welding done. I didn't pull off the last, well, I did a little bit on that one. There's no slag on this. But now we're going to take the grinder over here and smooth out the contours again so it's nice and smooth. We're just back to the smooth metal. It's really rough on the back side. And that's our tolerant side. This is the side that has to be seamless. So we're going to make the grinder, make it look pretty, then we'll inspect it, make sure it's good, and put some primer on it. and that'll take about 5 minutes, and then we'll put some black paint on it. Be able to put it back together again. Well, I had every intention of showing this the grinding to you. Unfortunately, the battery on my camera died, and the extension cord I was using to run my grinder I needed for the camera. But now we've got this done. I don't know if you can see it very well in this light, but it's very shiny. But the good point is that all the cracks are filled in, and we did a good penetrating weld. And so now it's you could go the next step and actually sand this down, but I don't care enough. So what I've got now is some self-etching primer. And I'm just going to go ahead and just spray this little area here, and it's a black anyway, but it's just a primer, so it takes about 5 minutes for this to dry. Then I've got some just semi-coat black, and I'll spray it on there, and then we'll be ready to mount this thing back on the mower. Alright, the paint is done. Now they pretty much look just the same on either side. They're both welded and fixed. We'll remount it back on here. We've got our screws right here, and I'm going to go ahead and screw this back together, but at least we've got our handle repaired on our mower. Now we're all bolted in. Got some flexibility to it, which is what we want. That way the mower can jump around and we're ready to go.